Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next Foreman community demo. It's your host, Gilvin, for the last time this time. If you have seen my blog post on the forum or on the community blog, you'll already know that I am moving to another role soon. And this, the way the dates fall means that this will be my last demo in charge of this segment, whatever you want to call it. So we've got a reasonable show, I think. I've got some things I want to say. If I can manage to. The usual statements before we start. If you want to join in, then you can join us on #theforeman in Freenode, or you can use the YouTube live comments, which I am monitoring for questions for all the presenters. And do remember to up the quality of your stream if it's looking a bit blurry. Sometimes YouTube defaults to a very low quality and you won't be able to read any of the text on people's screen sharing. So watch out for that. Other than that, let's have a look at the agenda, shall we? So firstly, 1.21 RC5, speaking too fast again, is out this morning. So congrats as always to the packaging and release team, Toma, Evoud, and all the rest for their hard work. We hope this will be the last release candidate. We will see if that's actually the case. Realistically, let's not be harsh on ourselves. This is actually only RC3. It's just the first two didn't work properly, so it's not as bad as it sounds. It's not that buggy, but it's looking pretty good. We hope to get the full release out shortly. On the subject, we'll talk a bit about the survey in a moment, conferences, and then obviously we actually have some presentations as well. So on the survey, it's been open for a month. I'm going to close it tomorrow. We have 115 responses, which is a bit down on last year. I'm slightly bummed. We got 160 last year. But if you haven't already filled out the community survey, please go and do so. It's valuable to us. It's the only way we get to know a lot about, to find out things that we couldn't easily get any other way because there's no tracking in Foreman, right? So we can't actually find out how you use it, how big the installs are, how many hosts you're looking after, what operating systems you do, which plugins you use. We don't know any of this stuff. So come and tell us, because then we can make sensible decisions about what to prioritize. So that's closing tomorrow. Go and do it now. Well, not now because you're watching a video, but after the video, go and do it then. Events roundup. So yes, we've just come back within the last 2 weeks from the big usual chaos that is the start of February for our community. And so we had DevConf, which we heard about on the last demo, which went very well. Then since the last demo, we've had FOSDEM, Config Management Camp, and our Hack Day. It was all fantastic. FOSDEM was its usual mental craziness of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people in one place for a weekend, which is just mind-blowingly crazy. And as a result of that, we spoke to a lot of new people. You know, we're 10 years old this year, but still people don't know who we are or what we're doing. And so we spent a lot of time talking to people about what we're going to do, what we do, why we're there, what we exist, what problem we're going to solve. And so this is all usual stuff. It was very busy. We had a great time. Then Config Management Camp, which obviously is our kind of flagship event at the moment, was as good as always. We had a full room, 30, 40 people. I felt the standard of the talks was pretty high this year. We had a lot more involvement from the community this year, so less Red Hat presenters, more community presenters, which I felt was a win. It was very nice to see us getting that done. Sorry for the traffic noise. And also the community dinner was lovely as well. Again, Red Hat is vastly outnumbered by community members, which is great. Feels really good when you reach that point. So that was lovely. And then the Hack Day was a huge success as well. We had our biggest one yet, which was 30 plus people. We had training materials from Dirk at Netways doing, getting the best out of your Foreman setup. We had a DT doing a beginner's guide to contributing, which was fantastic. We did lots of hacking around OpenStack, around the UI concepts. Roxanne was there along with Amir and Avi doing UI interviews and studies to find out how people are using the UI. Really, really productive day, really good fun. If you couldn't make it, put it in your calendars for next year. I'm sure we'll be doing it again. It's great fun. I had a great time. Obviously, it's kind of my last one, at least in this role, and so it was great fun to catch up with everyone and kind of see where we're at as I sort of step aside. So On that note, I thought it might be sensible for myself and Toma to re-present the State of the Community talk that we did at Config Management Camp. We're going to try and compress it. It took us 25 minutes. I'm not going to do all of it just now. There's a bit that I'll come back to at the end of the demo. But just to give you an idea of where we're at the moment as we go into 2019, and to let you know what we're looking at. And Toma, so I'm going to talk a bit about what we've done. Toma's going to talk a bit about what's coming up. So I'm just going to quickly change my screen sharing here. So I need to go to my slides, and I need to actually share those because Chromium's being totally annoying. I think it's this one I want. No, it's not actually letting me share the slides. That's excellent. Well done, you daft thing. All right, give me a sec while I figure out why that's not working. Very strange. So I should be able to open these in a browser and then share that if it'll let me. Give me 1 second because this was unexpected. So the situation, I'll talk you through what's happening while I find the slides. What has happened is I'm using a tool called R Markdown in RStudio to write my slides in, and you can preview those slides in a window, which is great. And then I've just tried to screen share that preview, and it totally has not worked. Fortunately, I can now do this, hopefully. So that's what we call filler, and it works, right? Because now the slides are here. So here we are. These are my slides. Okay, so let's talk about. We're going to talk about, as I've already said, we're going to talk about past, present, what we've done. Tommy's going to talk about future plans. So what have we done in the last year? 24 releases. Pretty impressive. That's credit to Toma and Evad and everybody in the packaging team who've worked so hard to like stabilize the release pipeline and to get us back to where we were. You know, we had a couple of rough years, and now I think we're as good, if not better, than where we were some time ago. Back on track, and that's great to see. Lots of active plugins. I couldn't list all of them, of course. Catello is obviously busy because it tracks Foreman, so lots of releases there, but also things like Discovery. Loads of plugins having very frequent releases. Very busy. Very, very good to see. Notably, you know, 4 major releases. So the vertical navigation is, as people will possibly have forgotten, only about a year old at this point, although it took us a year before that to get it all written and happy and getting everybody agreed with it in the development community. And so it was a big milestone to get it merged, but that was when it actually came out. 1.18 was a stability release. 1.19 had a whole ton of like smaller changes in it, which was great, you know, improvements under the hood. And 1.20 had the custom report templates from Marek, which was, frankly, if you haven't played with that feature, you totally should because it's amazing. So busy year in terms of just code written. In terms of community, you know, it was our 9th birthday, which for, you know, the good at maths among you will remember it's our 10th birthday this year, and we're going to try and do big things for that. We had quite a lot of conferences. So there was our sort of our usual ones: Config Management Camp, Summit. We had our first ever Foreman conference, specific Foreman conference. We did a half-day event in combination with Greylog, who took the other half. We called it Open Source Camp. It went pretty well. We might do a whole day for that this year, hopefully. So keep your eyes peeled for news about that. But also, you know, we had community representation thanks to ATIX at FrostCon. Rahul, I think, was at DevConf India. We had a whole bunch of hack days, birthday parties, busy, busy, busy. Toma became the release manager, which I think we'll all agree has been a fantastic thing. I got us migrated to Discourse. Okay, that's slightly more than a year, but it's fine. Got Redmine upgraded to the was the latest version. They've just gone and released Redmine 4 now. But anyway, and we had the community survey. And as I said, please do go and fill in this year's community survey. So busy time in the community as well. I want to talk a bit about community size. This comes from our RSS data. So if you don't already know, how Foreman does things. I said there's no tracking in Foreman. That's slightly a lie because there is one tiny thing, which is the RSS widget on the dashboard, which by default points to our RSS feed, so you can get told about new releases and so on. And that actually reports the version of Foreman to our Apache server. So I can log that and I can track that. But there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't do that. You might turn it off. You might have an older version of Foreman that doesn't have the notification system yet. and so on. So this is very much an underestimate on the size of the community, but you can see as of the start of February, that 1.20 way up there above 1.19. We still don't know exactly why 1.18 and 1.17 aren't dying off because they're at support. We suspect it might be to do with like Rails 5 and the requirements for running Foreman and things like that. So that's kind of where we're at there. And then if you total that up, you get something that looks a bit like this. No, I don't know why there appears to be like a 1 week periodicity in this graph. That's very weird. But nonetheless, you get a rough idea of the sort of size of the community and how it's growing. And even just in a couple of months worth of data there, you can see we've grown like 300 or so unique installs, unique IPs of Foreman servers, right? So that's pretty nice. So as a conservative estimate, you could say we've got at least sort of 3,000-4,000 Foreman installs out there in the wild, which is pretty cool. Talking about the busyness in the code, this was GitHub contributions just in a single repo. Sorry, in 12 repos. So I picked Foreman Core, well, the 4 projects that make up Core. So that's Foreman, Smart Proxy, SC Linux, and Installer. Not the Puppet modules, just the installer. And then I added in a selection of 8 other plugins, not necessarily the 8 biggest plugins, but just the ones I felt were notable and important to the community. And this is the total. This is the sizes of the commits. And note this is a logarithmic scale. So you can see this runs between plus and minus 10,000 lines of change in a single commit. Those are usually translations. But even so, we've got some pretty big commits here. And there's over 2,000 patches made to those 12 repos in 1 year, which is a lot, right? And that's just for 12 of the 100 or so repos in our organization. So that's pretty cool. If you break that down by, this is kind of a pointless graph, but I liked it. So this is just the same thing, but broken down per repo. So you can see Foreman can tell are very busy, remote execution, Ansible, Discovery, also quite busy, and then slightly quieter in things like hooks, SE Linux, and so on. I quite like that graph. I'm not sure it's very informative, but it's kind of pretty. So I thought I'd put it in there. Talking about contributors is always useful. So this is 2017 compared to 2018. And the number of contributors for each of those 12 projects. And you can see that in almost all cases, the number of contributors has gone up year on year. That's nice. I mean, there's not much more to say. It's nice to see. I hope we continue to see the same trends. Where the story is slightly less good is Redmine. So this is the number of bugs opened and closed since the start of 2018. It starts from 0 because that's when I'm looking at a cumulative sum. Of course, there were not 0 open bugs at the start of 2018, but this is just what's changed in 2018. More interestingly, the difference between those two numbers on each day is what's plotted at the bottom. And whilst that looks like white noise that's nicely evenly distributed, you'll note the mean of that is very slightly above 0. We are on average getting 1.44 more open bugs than closed bugs every day. Now, I don't necessarily believe that we have 1.44 more valid informational bugs that we can act on per day. I think there's a lot to do with duplicates, a lot to do with just badly specified bugs. I think we still have problems around triage and how to handle the volume that we do. And so whilst since I'm leaving, there's little I can do about it. I leave that there as a piece of information for the community team and the community as a whole to think about and to decide how they want to handle that, because those numbers are not going to go down while this continues to be true. And then finally, I wanted to talk about discourse, and really I wanted to show you what happened. So this graph I'm showing you here was the original graph that I showed you at the end of 2017 for the evidence that we should move to a form, or that we should do something because the mailing list was declining, right? So you can see the trend here. Because I'm better at statistics now, I have put a forecast on that shows you that the trend was not at all good, right? And that we were looking at being really quite quiet on our mailing lists. If you just left it as a mailing list and let the forecast run, it goes to 0 somewhere around like mid-2019, right? What actually happened? What actually happened when we moved to discourse? Well, it looks like this, and I think you'll agree that's a much better graph. So I really put this in here to say thank you to everyone for your faith in the move and for acting with the best intentions and embracing discourse. I haven't spoken to anyone who thinks it was a bad idea, like on reflection. I know there were people who were against it to start with, and to them particularly, I want to say thank you, because they've embraced it as much as anybody else. And I think it's worked out well. Everyone seems to be pretty happy with it. However, it is not all roses. If you take the recent data from Discourse and have a look at what that means going into the rest of 2019, it kind of goes flat. And so we still have a lot of work on our plate to promote Foreman, to drive more discussion, to get out there, to do meetups, to give talks about Foreman. If you have a local DevOps group near you, then please do go and present at it and tell us you're doing it, because then we can make a big noise and celebrate you in the community. We need ambassadors for Foreman to go out and talk about it, right? You know, it's not all roses. It's good, but it's not all roses. So please do go out and do more work on Foreman. That's what I want. More work, more Foreman. Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Toma to talk for a bit, who wants to talk about his plans for the year from the sort of code point of view. You'll have to obviously shout at me to change slides, Toma. But other than that, it's all yours.
Okay, so hi everyone. Over at Config Management Camp, I started off my part of the talk with a little quiz, which is very easy to do when you're in a room full of people, but harder to do over a YouTube presentation. So what I'm going to do is to show you some numbers, give you like a few seconds to think about what each number is, and then I will tell you what it is, and you'll see if you guessed it correctly or not. So next slide, please. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part, actually. So before we get to the numbers, so we did do some changes over the past year in the way we do release management. This is the drawing of how it used to work. As you can see, we were trying to get releases out approximately 3 months from each other, but if you've been following us for a while, you noticed that it didn't. There were several different causes for that, but generally we had quite a lot of releases that slipped, which is also part of the reason I started handling the releases now. So now the changes we've made. Next slide, please. You'll see that in the red here. So there's one change that we've made is branching exactly 3 months between each version to make sure that even if one version is delayed, that doesn't mean all of the next versions will be delayed and we can get back on schedule. We're also trying to do the first RC within 1 week of branching. In the past, it has taken sometimes up to a month or more to get to the first RC since branching, which led to a lot of divergent code and lots of cherry pick, lots of extra work. And to do that, we need to get stable nightlies working when we branch. To make sure we have stable nightlies, we've added a stabilization week prior to branching, which is basically a week where we don't merge any big changes into Foreman, and only make sure that nightlies are working and building properly so that we can branch and get the RC out as soon as possible. 2 other changes that aren't specific to the timeline are that now there's 2 people doing the core releases instead of just one, which was in the past, which is me and Evad, and we're splitting between ourselves the different tasks of doing the release. And we're also having a transparent process. If you follow Discourse, you'll see that there's updates in the development releases category every week from our meetings. If anyone is interested in joining them, you're more than welcome to do so. Yeah, and now I think it's the numbers quiz. Yep, so 103. I'll give you a few seconds to think about what that number is. And that number is actually the number of different settings in Foreman with no plugins installed. If you go to administer settings, you will have 103 different settings that you can change. Next, please. 71. Think about it. What has 71? So 71 is the number of fields that on the host form, on a new host form with no compute resource selected, no Puppet classes, nothing. Just the basic new host form has 71 different inputs that you can fill. Next one. 565. This is the number of options that the Foreman installer currently has. These numbers are just a representation of the direction that I think we should be taking in the near future. Next slide, please. Which is simplifying everything. We are currently supporting a whole lot of various workflows, allowing a lot of customization, but that means that we have a very, very complex application, which is hard to maintain, hard to change, and causes a lot of bugs because we can't obviously test every single combination of settings and installer options and everything. So I would hope that one of our main goals for the next year and maybe more is to make Foreman simpler, being more opinionated, easier to use, easier to get set up. That might mean that a trade-off is that we give up on handling some specific edge cases that may be used by a few people, but in the long term, I think that we should handle the main workflows better and make them easier for newcomers. If you're following Discourse, there's a big thread called Getting Started, where several new users are sharing their experiences of setting up Foreman. And this is a very big pain point and something that's preventing our community and our user base from growing. Next, please. Part of making things simpler is making a lot of UI improvements, making the workflows easier, also documenting stuff better. Our manual was written over 10 years, and it looks like it has been written over 10 years, and it needs quite a revamp. Lots of stuff is out of date or just too explicit and confusing for a new user. Next, please. And another thing that I think is also related is making sure that we are doing the basic workflows well. That means provisioning, whether it's on bare metal, virtual machines in the cloud, doesn't matter which one. The Azure and Google Cloud plugins have been broken for quite a while. I think that's a shame. I think that we should invest time in making sure the basic provisioning workflows work everywhere. Same goes for config management. Ansible and Puppet are in a good state, but Salt and Chef aren't quite in a good state, and I would be happy to see them coming back because users are trying to use them and they're failing because they are not being well maintained. I think we've added quite a lot of features over the years, and I think we need to focus a bit on the basic workflows and making sure that they are working well. Making Foreman simpler will also make that easier to make sure that everything is working properly. Next. And that's it for me.
Thanks very much, Tomer. Yeah, there is another part to this, but I'm going to do it at the end. So for now, I'm going to unshare this and move back to the main demo slides. And next up, we are going to have Justin, who is going to talk us through some capsule stuff, I think. So let me just find what I did with the slides. I always forget that Chrome is really picky about this. There we go. Right. So, Justin, what have you got for us?
Hi, Greg. I've been working for the past couple months on a feature that Ewood actually started and I took over from him. and it's adding additional information that Foreman can fetch from a smart proxy. So if you look today, here I'm fetching from my smart proxy the list of features, and all you get is a simple list of all the features installed. It doesn't allow for things like exposing what functionality a feature is configured to provide. If that service provides various levels of functionality, and it doesn't allow you to expose settings or how something may be configured. So we've added a v2 features API to the smart proxy here, and I'll execute this real quick. And as you see, we get a lot more back. So the first thing to note is this is now returning all available features from the smart proxy, even ones that are not enabled. And so what this can do is it can actually allow Foreman to look for problems that maybe the user isn't aware of. So for example, if DHCP is not enabled and Foreman detects, or if the user performs some action that would need DHCP enabled, it can actually detect that and say, hey, you selected the smart proxy, but it doesn't actually, it's enabled but not, or it's installed but not enabled, for example. The second thing that it adds is the ability to expose settings. So like here, for example, in this pulp plugin, we can now expose the pulp URL. And this would allow the smart proxy to be controlling a pulp server on another system. Or another example would be our TFTP server can now expose the server name. Today, with the v1 features API, there's no way to expose this. So the Foreman server actually has to make an API call out to the smart proxy every single time it needs this server name. And so that API can go away eventually, and we can just rely on this exposed setting. The second thing we have is capabilities. And this is a simple array. And let me show you an example. Here, for example, it's an array of capabilities that the feature is supporting or is configured to use. And for the Pulp 3 work, we're going to be using this to see what content types are actually loaded in the Pulp 3 server. And these can be statically defined. So it could be based on at startup just on a static set of capabilities, or they can actually be dynamic. And when the features or when the features APIs hit, it can actually go look up a set of capabilities. And that's actually what's happening here in Pulp. Today, the only thing that's merged is the actual v2 features API and the smart proxy. The Foreman work to actually use some of this stuff and store the settings and capabilities, there's still a PR open to do that. And that is all. That
is really cool. I think Lucas showed some of this in a previous demo, but it's nice to see it coming together. Something occurred to me while you were talking there. If Foreman can see all of the disabled plugins and indeed the settings, is the longer term plan to enable it to control those?
I hadn't really thought about that. I wouldn't expect so, at least right now.
I mean, in general, but it's just, it seems to me like that's a step towards being able to enable and disable plugins from Foreman, right?
Yep.
Which could be really nice.
And the configuration.
Yeah, exactly. So that could be really nice. I mean, obviously, you don't want to. It's a bit awkward when it's in flat configuration files and you need to restart the proxy after you change them and things like this, right? So there's orchestration issues there. But in general, if Foreman can see it and diagnose problems with it, then the natural next step is, can I control it and just save myself the step of having to log in the first place?
Yep.
So, and that kind of feeds into thoughts I've had for a long time about like having a proper like plugin store, for want of a better word. You know, things like you have with various other web apps like Nextcloud and so on, where you can easily enable and disable things from within the UI, right? I've always wanted that for Foreman. And even if I can't have it for Foreman, maybe we could have it for the proxy at least, and so on. But yeah, it's certainly fascinating stuff, and I like where that's going. Okay, let's see. I don't have any other people just now, I don't think. So I will move on. No other questions. So we're going to move on to Chris. We're going to talk about sync overrides.
Alrighty. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So I wanted to show a thing I added. I was going to do it for the last demo, but something came up. So basically, what I added into Catello is the ability to, so say you have, most people will have 5, 10 content, capsules or so, and it's not a problem when they sync. But if you start to get ones that are like, some customers will have 50 or 100, and those are spread geographically, you don't want all those to sync at once because of bandwidth latency or other issues that can cause issues if, if syncs don't work correctly. So what I added here is a new setting. Let's see, where we can override the default behavior of when you promote a content view to a lifecycle environment instead of starting a sync to all the capsules. That can be done manually. So what I want to do is demo that here. So by default, the behavior is set to work as normal. So I've overridden it to no. And if I go back to my capsules here, I've got a lifecycle environment of capsule sync. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my content view, and we're just going to promote it to that. And we'll see that it does not sync to the capsule. And if I go to my tasks, we can see that it actually did not go to the capsule. So we're keeping it on the Catello, but it gives us the flexibility then to say, hey, which capsules we're going to go sync manually. So we don't run into issues where if one capsule's down or one capsule or smart proxy is, like in an area that's really got bad latency, we don't want to sync right now. So that's what I wanted to demo today. And it gives customers who have those larger environments a little bit more flexibility.
Super. Yeah, I guess there's not much more to say about that, really. I don't see any questions. So pretty good, really. Okay. Thanks so much, Chris. So back to me. Now, we would have had Andra next. Unfortunately, he's having browser issues getting joined to the Hangout, so he's going to have to delay that to the next demo, unfortunately. And so that technically leaves me with this slide, but not quite. I do want to say a few more words. I have 2 more things to talk about. Firstly, I want to talk about muting Chris because he's still got his microphone open. Oh. It's all right, mate. So I want to talk about the community structure. As mentioned, I am leaving the community team. And so that leaves a role that needs to be filled. Now, some of you already know it was never really made official, but as of about a year ago, we actually formed an internal community team within the Foreman team at Red Hat, which consists of myself, Ori, and Tomer, who you just heard. And Ori's here as well. And so that's been a trio. The 3 of us have been looking after community issues and dealing with events management, all the kind of stuff, the behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't see so much for the last year or so. So that trio continues. I step out, someone else steps in. And so Ori becomes the new community manager. So congratulations to her. Tomer remains the release manager. And I'd like to introduce you to Rahul, who is theoretically sat behind me. I'm just going to put my video on for a sec. Hello, people. Here he is. So he's actually on a different Hangout watching how I run a demo, so he knows how to do it next time. So you can wave. Hey, there he is. So Rahul's going to be stepping into the community trio in order to help out to handle all the things that I basically do in terms of looking after the community, listening to the community, doing the networking, going to events, all that kind of stuff. And so he's going to be doing that. So welcome to the team. I think you're going to be great. If you don't already know Ori can say hi as well.
Hey, everyone. Greg, first of all, I'd like to use this opportunity to thank you for so many years as the community manager. And for those of you who haven't already seen me do the demo a few times when Greg was actually on paternity leave or at conferences, then this is me. And we'll continue, as Greg said, with the team. And welcome to Rahul, who is joining us.
Cool, thanks, Ori. And obviously you all know Toma as well already. I don't think we need to repeat that. So yes, with me, I'm not going far. I'm staying within Red Hat. I'm actually pretty much adjacent. I'm still going to be doing some work within Foreman as well, but considerably less publicly, although I may pop up in a demo from time to time. I will, for example, be doing the community survey results. When we close it tomorrow, the analysis will need to be done, and that will probably fall to me. So I will come on a demo at some point and present that. But you'll see a lot less of me in general. Although if you need me, you know where I am. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be on the forum and hanging out in Freenode and Matrix, so you can get me. This is all fine, but I did think it would be reasonably fun to have a quick look at the history. So for those of you who don't know, I have been part of the Foreman community for 8 years. And this was where I started. This was the Puppet Camp in Amsterdam in 2011. I had been using Puppet for a couple of months in my company back then, and someone suggested that I should therefore go to a Puppet Camp. And so I pitched it to my boss, and he said yes. And so I went, and it was a lot of fun. Ohad was there, although I didn't meet him that day. Actually, if you go and look online, you can find the Eventbrite listing for this page, and I can look down that list of names, and there are so many names there that I now know who were there then, and people I literally ran into a couple of weeks ago at Config Management Camp were at this Puppet Camp, right? And so I was there, I knew nobody, but I heard about this tool called Foreman, and I went back to my office when I got home and tried it out, and I loved it, right? And so I started using it, and my first contribution, well, before my first contribution was my first email to Ohad, where in 0.3 something didn't work. And so I emailed him and I said, hey, your audits don't work and I really need them for what I'm doing. Can I help? And Ohad being Ohad, he replied with a patch, which kind of bummed me out because I wanted to contribute. And the patch worked, and I deployed 0.4 in production at my company. My first contribution came somewhat later. It says 2012, but that's actually wrong. As you can see here, it's actually 2011. And that was, IBAN was the company I was working for, and it was a very exciting patch that fixed the summary emails. But hey, it was a contribution. And it spiraled from there. I joined Red Hat in later in 2012. So I joined in September 2012. So a little over a year later, I'd become integral to the community. I'd met Ohad and Amos and various other people. I don't think I met Amos actually, but Ohad and various community members were at FOSDEM 2012. I was there. I took over the Debian packaging, and it all got a bit crazy for a while, and I was doing like 12-hour days with Foreman. But that kind of thing tends to get you noticed. So, you know, Red Hat hired me. And at that time, it was a bit smaller. So the thing I like here, the number of contributors has gone up somewhat. From 25 contributors to 417 as of today. Total, that's across all time, which is like a 1,600% increase. The code base actually hasn't increased that much, and I put that down to, that's just in Foreman core, by the way, and I put that down to the Rails scaffolding, right? Because like commit number 2 in the Git repo adds like 200,000 lines of code, right? Because Ohad's clearly done like Rails in it, and that's like it hasn't gone up that much from there. The contributing time, I think the community is stickier. I mean, obviously, contributing time is less when your project is younger because it physically cannot be longer than the age of the project, right? But in terms of how long does someone typically keep contributing for, you know, the time between their first contribution and their last contribution, it's gone up significantly. People tend to hang around, at least some people, you know, this is the median to be clear, so we're trying to account for outliers and stuff. It's gone up a lot. People hang around, people participate in the community for long periods of time, and that's great to see as well, that we're solving problems and people are happy to keep contributing. This was I did that last one, that how long do people keep contributing, as a graph. So he's already left the call, unfortunately. So I only labeled some of these, but number 2 is actually Justin, who was here a few minutes ago. And then I'm down here at like 19th, right? Despite the fact I've been here for 8 years, I actually kind of stopped contributing about 3 years ago when I became the community manager, right? I kind of gave up writing code. So I kind of fell off this graph somewhat. This is, again, just for Foreman core. But yeah, people, OHAD's been doing this for 10 years, right? 3,000 plus days. And that's pretty impressive. So, that's great. And then finally, I was going to show some screenshots, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I will actually. Let me see here. If I do, can I just get a new tab? Hey, it works. Fantastic. So if you go to our Redmine and you do projects.theforeman.org, you probably don't know this is here. But if you go to the wiki, so if you go to projects, Foreman, wiki, and then somewhere in here, and I have to remember where it is, there is a list of screenshots. There it is. There it is. There it is. Right, here we go. This is Foreman 0.4, right? This is how, and what I love about these screenshots is how, there it is. Like you can see the 0.4 in the bottom. I love how little this has actually changed in nearly 8 years, and this is what I deployed in production, right? And in 8 years, let's see what's changed. Okay, the dashboard has changed a little bit. It's kind of more widgety, and you can move things around, but those widgets are still there. The host list hasn't changed that much. The host edit page has really only got more complicated. Host details is a little bit different. I guess that one probably changed the most. Fact values, nope, hasn't changed. Audits, okay, we got the new audits UI like in the last release, so fair enough. Config templates are a bit different. And finally, reports, which has just literally not changed at all. And the report diffs and so on. So actually, whilst we have made huge strides in what Foreman is capable of, and obviously we've got the vertical navigation, actually it hasn't changed that much. Yeah, the other thing I would show you is an example of the sorts of things I'm going towards. I'm doing a lot more statistics and more data work, and I did this for fun. I wonder if I can zoom in and make it a little bigger. So this is what I show. This is the number of commits within any given date range, and then plotting the people as circle sizes, so you can see that I'm on here somewhere, but I always have to look pretty carefully. Yeah, there I am. I'm down there. And so this was for like 2016 to 2018, right? So I can put it up here right up to the very latest, and you can see that because we include, this is for all the repos in both the Foreman and the Catello organizations. So it's like 160 GitHub repositories, and so because packaging's included and it's lots of small commits, Evad and Michael kind of dominate there. I need to add some filtering to this, but what's really fun is when you go back in time. So if you go right back to the beginning, first 2 years of the project, just as I was joining, this is what it looks like, right? So it's I'm trying to remember if I'm not on there until a little bit later. I think you have to kind of go up to about 2012, and then I should show up, I think. Nope, still no. Boring. All right, a bit more. All right, there I am. Yeah, there I am. So this is anyone with more than 5% gets a name, basically. So it's fun. You can play with this. stats.theforeman.org/apps/git commits. You can have a play around with it. I'm going to add some more features to it, allow you to select like different groups of repos and things. I did an animation of this, which is quite good fun as well. So downloads.theforeman.org/videos. Oh, it's the CDN's not cached this page. Git commits.web. Very good. It takes about a minute to run, and so while that's running, I'll just talk. So 8 years. It's been a long time. I've had a huge amount of fun. I've had a huge amount of privilege. This has been an amazing community to be a part of. I literally would not be where I am today without you. In fact, it makes me think of the word Ubuntu, not the operating system, but actually the African concept which the operating system takes its name from. And loosely translated, Ubuntu is a concept of humanity. It means I cannot be me without all of you being you. And I feel that pretty strongly today. I wouldn't be who I am or where I am without this community. It's been a tough decision to step away. I'm very excited about the direction that I'm going in, but it's very difficult to take something that you shepherded for a long time and to give it to somebody else. I know that Ori and Toma and Rahul will do a fantastic job, I know that you will be just fine. This community is amazing. It's one of the most helpful and friendly communities I've ever been a part of. I mean, I'm a child of the early 80s. I've been in the internet since the internet was a thing. I've been in all sorts of different communities. And yet this one stands out to me as the strongest, nicest, most helpful, and most knowledgeable community that I've ever been a part of. And I am proud to have helped that in any way at all. So, yeah, it's time for a change. You will all be just fine, and things are going to be interesting. You will not necessarily not see me ever again, but I will definitely not be as present as I used to be. But that's life, and that's how it is. You know, all things must change, and that's fine. So with that, and for the very last time, thanks for watching, and do take care.